This work session of the Board of Education of the Cleveland Municipal School District will come to order. Mr. Stockdale, please call the roll.
Ms. Ellicott?
Here.
Mr. Billups?
Here.
Mr. Briggs?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Pastor Jones? Mrs. LeBrun?
Here.
Mrs. Peak? Here. Dr. Sridhar?
Here.
Mrs. Welchow? Here. There are 8 members present.
Thank you. I ask everyone who wishes to rise and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Just prior to this board meeting, the school district held its annual retirement celebration for CMSD employees who have retired or will be retiring this school year. We are pleased to welcome many of these retirees to this board meeting for a brief recognition. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Morgan.
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. This is our third year of doing a recognition for all of our retirees. And this year we had just under 200 members of our staff that retired, and the majority of them celebrated with us right before the board meeting with a dinner and a certificate. It is the least we can the least way we can show our gratitude for the many years of service, leadership. We have school leaders that are retiring this year, educators, many of our support staff, our transportation members and team that was out. So we are really grateful for their years of leadership and service. We've talked about how this has been a year of significant change across our district. Much of the changes are in effect to ensure that we have a stronger, more vibrant CMSD this year. And for all of our retirees, they have seen so many iterations of our district, so many different transformations, so many different changes. Some were still around when we were still called Cleveland Public Schools. So we are really grateful for all their years of leadership and their wisdom. And I know we'll be taking that with us. So really grateful for each of them that are here. We are going to have them stand and come up to the front. We're going to take a picture with the board. So we'll have Mercedes Farmer from our talent team that is going to be taking a picture as everyone comes up to the front. So those that are still here from our retirement celebration, you can come up. You can bring your certificate if you want. And our board members are going to come up as well. So Ms. Farmer, wave your hand. Here we go.
Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take one more. 1, 2, 3.
Amen. Several others, so let's
Wait for you.
And for all of our honorees, of course, this is a public meeting, so we welcome you if you want to stay. But we also, if you have other engagements that you need to go to, you can also take this time to transition as well.
Next up, the board has asked Mr. Pete Van Leer to come in and present on Ohio school funding. Pete Van Leer is the Deputy Director and co-founder of Honesty for Ohio Education, a coalition of more than 90 partner organizations and thousands of Ohioans. Honesty convenes, organizes, and advocates so that every student has the freedom to learn and grow in a well-funded, welcoming, and supportive public school. For more than 25 years, Mr. Van Leer has focused on education research, advocacy, and policy at the local and state level. Thank you, Mr. Van Leer, for joining us tonight, and we do have your presentation up and available on board docs as well.
Great.
We'll let you speak, and then towards the end, if there are any board questions, we'll pivot to that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. All right. So yeah, my name is Pete Van Leer, and Chair Ellicott has already kind of described Honesty for Ohio Education. I'm a co-founder and the deputy director there. Let's make sure this works. All right.
Mr.
So,
Van Leer, could you just adjust the microphone a little bit towards you?
is that better?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we are the statewide organization, a coalition that we've been around for almost exactly 5 years now, and we started in response to some legislation that was introduced in Ohio around, it was anti-critical race theory legislation. But our work has really expanded to include, because we've done a lot of organizing, to include things like funding and vouchers and an array of issues like that. So we offer networks and alliances that we bring together and facilitate around the state. That includes, for example, our School Board Alliance, which includes local board members from across Ohio. And education legislation tracking and analysis. When the legislature's in session, as it is now, we track legislation that's important to our coalition and our members, and it's mostly focused on education. We do things like testimony trainings, for example, and send out alerts when key bills have hearings. We try to provide tools to teach Ohioans how they can impact education from their local communities to the State House. Like we have toolkits on vouchers and property tax. I'll mention some of those later. And we provide a lot of guidance and support resources in other spaces too. I want to mention our teams work. As I mentioned earlier, we have organizers across the state, including in Northeast Ohio, and they work to bring up local communities, give them some tools and equipment, equip them to create their own grassroots teams that can advocate for public education in the ways that best suit their community. So it might be different in different places what they're going to focus on, but again, this is where we've gotten the desire and the need for some work on school funding and vouchers, and we work with a lot of other coalition partners on that as well. So we offer resources like toolkits, we have office hours on certain subjects, we provide the legislative updates, and I mentioned testimony templates and more. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. We have, again, I think in Cleveland, one of the things we're doing is working with retired educators on organizing that group of folks. I'm not sure what's going on here. But
Mr. Van Leer, sorry, just
Yeah.
a moment. Board members, can you see the presentation on your board docs? Okay.
no.
Let's get that reloaded, and then not sure what's going on up here as well. My apologies.
Okay, I can hold off. There's something wrong with this slide too, but that
Yeah.
might be on my end.
Okay. Okay, if everyone refreshes, you should be able to view it now. And then are we able to fix the screen that's projecting?
Yeah, it's.
That's strange, okay. Well, we can, hopefully it's only this one.
My apologies, Mr. Van Leer. We'll get an updated version up later on. Yeah.
Good. All right, we can make it work. All right, so I'm going to get into the heart of it now, but I hope to leave you today with a greater awareness of the complicated landscape of public education funding in Ohio and how difficult it is to understand all the moving parts to that. So I'm going to start with a report from Policy Matters Ohio, where I used to work, about who pays and who wins in terms of taxes. In 2026, Ohio millionaires pay the same flat tax rate, 2.75% income tax rate as public school teachers, childcare workers, firefighters, you name it. Anybody with income over $26,000, they pay that same flat income. So, and to put it in perspective, 20 years ago, before we had this move to cut taxes, the Ohio tax code had 9 income tax brackets, right? So this is a gradual over time, and we're getting to the point where, everybody's paying the same rate, which means that, given all the tax cuts, tax breaks, loopholes created since 2005, it means people who are wealthier tend to pay, especially less, they pay less relative to their income, and often less overall in terms of, as a share of their income, they pay less. So that's the picture of what's been happening over time. In that 20 years, that means over time, we've got to the point where our state now loses out on $17 billion in revenue each year because of those cuts, tax breaks, and loopholes, a lot of corporations and wealthier individuals. And that money could be used and used to be used more to fund essential public services, including education. There was a piece in the paper the other day that caught my attention from Brent Larkin, and he tallied up the totals, and over the past 20 years, he said that was $102 billion in foregone revenue and lost revenue that the state legislature decided they didn't need or want. So Ohio's share of public school funding. So this is another example of how things have changed since 2019, which isn't that long ago. The state paid nearly half of all the money spent on public schools in Ohio, that 47% in fiscal year 2019. That share keeps dropping and is projected to be at 32% at the end of the next school year, which is fiscal year 2027. And you can see, and what happens then is that, from the state paying nearly half the bill, we now have local taxpayers picking up what the state drops. And a lot of districts have limited means to be able to do that, so you're seeing cuts across the state. And this is despite the DeRolf lawsuit in the late 1990s and the Ohio Supreme Court rulings that said that funding in our state was unconstitutional, even back then. This is like in the 1990s, a long time ago. But even since then, they've kept on funding less and less, with a few exceptions, few efforts and exception. I'll talk about those. Here's the main one, right? Ohio's Fair School Funding Plan. It was designed as an objective, needs-based, transparent funding formula for K-12 public schools. It was a bipartisan plan that was passed several years ago, and it was calculated on the actual cost of educating students. That's, make sure I'm, yes, okay. That the base cost is essentially it's a shared cost per student without any targeted money, and then they add money for specific demographics or kids with special needs, low-income children, English learners. So this is that's the calculate on what it really costs to educate students based on what can be raised locally and what needs to be spent locally, because it can be different at different places. Salaries are different, costs are different. So that local funding is based on, in the Fair School Funding Plan, it's based on property, wealth, and income levels in the local community, local school district. And this was overwhelmingly approved by the legislature in 2021, bipartisan again, and by fiscal year 2025, so it was 2/3 implemented. So we're in the 3rd budget cycle since then. The first 2, they started phasing it in because they didn't want to do it all at once. And by the end of last fiscal year, it was 2/3 implemented. So, still on the Fair School Funding Plan, it was underfunded or scrapped for the current 2-year budget cycle, which is this school year and the next school year. And some people will say underfunded because they say it still is there. Others say essentially by underfunding it and doing what they did, it's scrapping the whole plan. And it doesn't include any plan for the future. So they chose not to complete the phase-in when they passed the budget because they based school needs on 2022 costs instead of the updated cost for, adjusting for inflation and all that. They also added some funding bonuses for wealthier school districts, and the result is that there's a $2.75 billion funding shortfall over the biennium compared to what the Fair School Funding Plan would have provided had it been fully implemented. So this is a very specific from Policy Matters Ohio. They looked at the impact on every district around the state, and this is what would happen in Cleveland, right? So state funding in Cleveland would have received $155 million more than that under a fully implemented Fair School Funding Plan, but instead state policymakers cut the funding for Cleveland schools by $1.6 million. This left a $157 million funding gap over 2 years compared to the previous year's funding. And I'm putting these QR codes in there. Hopefully that's helpful. You can get to these reports through that code. So newer data on this same page that's linked here also show the extent to which local schools rely on property taxes. And according to the data that Policy Matters found, for the last school year, 39% of CMSD's operating expenditures were covered by property tax revenue that the district collected. And I'll have to check with Kevin after to make sure that's a good number. So I want to move on to vouchers, which is something we're studying a lot and looking at a lot. And that is any discussion on school funding has to include that. And of course, as you probably know, Cleveland is different from everywhere else. We have the oldest voucher program in the state, the second oldest in the country from the mid-90s. Currently, there are, according to the data, we have 33,000, or like last year, 33,399 students enrolled in CMSD, and the base cost received per student from the state was $5,279, right? That is, again, without added targeted funding. 8,300 students who live in the district use the Cleveland voucher last year, and high schoolers get up to $8,400, K-8 gets $6,100. So that's just a comparison, and we see the base cost as a good comparison because the voucher money is for, as long as, in Cleveland, it's anybody can get it, regardless of income, and as long as you go to one of those schools, regardless of the services they provide you, regardless of your needs, that's the amount you're going to get versus the $5,200 in base cost that the district gets, not including all the other pieces of funding. There's no income cap, as I mentioned, and this number is, I've been alerted that this may not be an accurate number, so I'm going to just flag that. According to the state, 97% of families using it did not qualify as low income, but I think there's some questions around how many people actually report their income at schools that don't charge more tuition. So take that with a grain of salt, that 97%. It's on the state website, so that's why I used it, but I've since had some conversations since I created this slide. So 33 Cleveland residents used Ed Choice Expansion, which is a different program. It's a statewide program that I'll talk more about this in a minute. But it's you can get the full amount of $8,400 and $6,100 up until 450% of the federal poverty level. Above that, it goes down eventually to 10%, which is like $800 for the wealthiest Ohioans can get that. And again, the link is there. Here's just an overall picture of funding for vouchers in Ohio. And just to show the overall sort of context, right? The biggest recent change that happened was between the 2022-23 school year and the following school year, 23-24. And you'll see that in the second line under Ed Choice Expansion. It's when the legislature made that program universal. Before then, it had been limited by income, and then they lifted the cap. Again, as I mentioned, up to 450% of poverty, the federal poverty guidelines, you get the whole amount, and above that, at around 780% of poverty, you only get 10%. Anybody can get at least something, right? So you can see that big jump, more than tripled from 23 to 24, and now that they're spending more than projected to spend $560 million next school year on Ed Choice Expansion. Cleveland's different. It's an older program. They're budgeted to spend $58.9 million next school year, and you can see the increase from 46 just 6 years ago. And then you can see the overall totals, because this is not just about Cleveland, right? It's about the whole state and the legislature's push to privatize schools. And $1.2 billion in FY27 is budgeted for all the voucher programs. So one thing I want to note here is the Vouchers Hurt Ohio lawsuit, which is about EdChoice and EdChoice expansion. It's focused on those two programs, and like I said before, a few students in Cleveland use them. However, they got a favorable ruling last year in a district court in Franklin County, and which basically found the programs unconstitutional. And now it's winding its way slowly. It just got another hearing a month ago in a different court, appeals court, because the state appealed the ruling that it was unconstitutional, and it'll eventually make its way to the Ohio Supreme Court. So at the very least, while it doesn't directly impact Cleveland, it could set a legal precedent around the voucher program. If they find it, we've been talking to people who are involved with that, including a former Ohio Supreme Court judge, justice. They feel like if they follow the Constitution, which says you have to create a common system of schools in Ohio, that this program will be found unconstitutional. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah. All right, talking about charter schools. And this is a little bit complicated. Charter schools in Cleveland. In Ohio, they're legally known as community schools. And I want to talk a little bit about the language, just so you understand it, because a lot of people get it all confused. Community schools are called charter schools nationally, but here they're called community schools. We still call them charters, right? Because everybody uses that language. They can't take vouchers, for example. They're tuition-free schools. They're by law public nonprofits, but often many of them are operated by for-profit firms, companies that run these things, run their kind of programs. So those are community schools, which we often refer to as charter schools. Then there are chartered non-public schools, which can have a charter with the state, but they're the private schools that can take the voucher program, the 3 EdChoice programs, right? So then there are non-chartered, non-public schools, and they have intentionally not gotten a state charter because of, and according to state law, the language in law is because they have truly held religious beliefs, right? So even though a lot of the the chartered non-public schools are also religious, especially in Cleveland, they're Catholic, tend to be Catholic, a lot of them. There's still like that, and I hope that makes sense that, the charter schools, which are public, the chartered non-publics, which are private, and the non-chartered non-publics. So it's a lot to process, but I hear people getting them confused all the time, thinking charter schools take vouchers and likewise. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Also, these numbers here, 52 charter schools within CMSD boundaries last year, currently enrolling more than 15,000 students, and that's up from 10,000, almost 11,000 in 2008, 2009, almost 20 years ago. Students in this city can also attend charter schools anywhere, whether it's an online school or a suburban charter school. So we don't have that 15,000 students is the CMSD boundaries, but more students are probably leaving to go to charter schools elsewhere or doing online work. Statewide, for that picture, more than 119,000 students attended charters last year, up from 88,000 in 08, 09. All right, so that's that on charter schools. Real quick, property tax changes. We can't talk about school funding without talking about property taxes. So I mentioned earlier that 39% of CMSD's operating expenditures were covered by property tax revenue in that Policy Matters report from last week. You probably know there's a group collecting signatures statewide to prohibit local entities like schools, libraries, local government from collecting property taxes. What's important to note is last year in Ohio, property taxes raised more than $21 billion for local governments, schools, libraries, police, fire, EMS, you name it. And that revenue would have to be replaced somehow if that referendum were to go on the ballot. Now, they announced just the other day that they're not going to go on the November ballot this year, but they're going to keep trying for November of 27. So we have a toolkit on that, just to let people know how important property tax is. And probably because it was the legislature and the governor were spurred by what was happening with the the Axe Ohio tax folks. The state legislature passed and Governor DeWine signed bills that limit revenue growth from rising property values, trying to provide what they call property tax relief. And the new laws, according to the Republican House newsroom and the Ohio State, the new laws will mean revenue for Ohio school districts drops by as much as $1.7 billion over the next 3 years. There's all kinds of complications where who has authority to do what. There's these county budget commissions. And I don't think in Cuyahoga County we'll have a problem, but in some parts of the state, they are trying to claw back money from school districts. And it's certainly going to happen, and there's efforts to stop that from happening. So this toolkit of ours is just trying to give people that information about the importance of property taxes. So I'm a big, into history of Cleveland schools. I've been focused on the schools since the late 90s. And I just want to give a plug for this, this exhibit. And there's a website too, and there's the website, Relay Cleveland. It's at City Hall right now. And it's currently on display there. And the history it tells is very relevant, I think, to where we are today in Cleveland, right? So decades and decades of history matter to the moment. So 1940 to 1960, the black population in our city grew from 85,000 to 251,000. The Great Migration, people moving north to escape Jim Crow. But even as that was happening, the city's overall population began to drop. By the early 1960s, more than 30% of Clevelanders were black, and schools in segregated neighborhoods where they lived on the east side were beyond full. I mean, they were bursting at the seams. But still, intentional policies kept the students apart, with black families poorly served, and I'll tell more about this, in these enrolled schools, and whites leaving the city and leaving their schools, empty classrooms in their schools, right? And there's the link there. And here's the things that I think are particularly interesting. So relay scheduling, that's why it's called Relay Cleveland. Half-day school for black children on the east side, at least from the mid-50s to the early 1960s, with more kids on wait lists. So kids were going to school for half a day and not getting a full education like they were in the white west side schools. Intact busing, this was a new one for me. I didn't know about it until I saw this exhibit. It brought back black children from the over-enrolled east side schools into just classrooms in under-enrolled west side schools. And they were literally, I think, if I remember correctly, they would be allowed to leave once a day. They had lunch in their classrooms. They couldn't go to the lunchroom. And it was, this was their effort to keep segregating students, but knowing that they had to at least do something to help educate them. Paul Briggs, superintendent, until 1978, when the desegregation case started happening. He oversaw the construction of new East Side schools as he shifted focus from integration to quote-unquote quality education that maintained segregation. And it was one of the reasons they overbuilt on the East Side. And many of you might remember Bruce Klunder, the minister who lay down in front of a bulldozer and was killed when they were trying to stop a school from being built because they knew it was about segregation and keeping people separate and keeping the students separate. There's all kinds of other history there that I could go into. But Reed versus Rhodes, which was decided by Judge Battisti in '76, led to the deseg efforts, and that began in 1978, where they started moving students around in different ways. And there's also this sort of myth, I think, that white flight started because of busing, but in fact, white flight started in the 1950s, and I'll get to that a little bit too. So declining enrollment, this is not unique to Cleveland. Public school districts in Ohio lost 105,000 students. That's 6.6% from fiscal year 15 to 25, right? At the same time, CMSD lost almost 6,000. That's about 15% over the same period of time. When I started reporting on CMSD issues, I was a journalist back in early 2000s. The district had 70,000 students enrolled, right? And now we're at 34,000, okay? So it was double then, just 26 years ago, 25 years ago, than it is now. So historical and current reasons for dropping enrollment. I mean, we have families leaving the city. I see this all the time. My wife and I have friends we know of people who, when their kids get to be kindergarten age, they leave. They go to Lakewood or Shaker or wherever. Used to be Cleveland Heights, but now, people don't like to be there either. So families leaving, going to suburbs, the voucher program, of course, lower birth rates are affecting everybody. And then just the decades-long history that I'm talking about with Relay, with the highways, 31 school districts in Cuyahoga County alone. How does that make sense? Well, it only makes sense because of segregation, because they didn't want anybody else to come into the city. I mean, Cleveland and East Cleveland are two of the only districts that have open enrollment, I think. There might be a couple others. Cuyahoga Falls or Heights had it, and they stopped it, but they charged for it. You have to pay like $5,000 if you wanted to go to their school from a different city. So this is all about creating barriers so that you can't, those kids couldn't come to my school, right? Highways, I mentioned that starting in the 50s and 60s, started making it easier to get out. You could come into town for your job and live in the suburbs, away from the people you didn't want to be with. It's quiet, what have you, cheaper land, especially out in the suburbs. So I am saying a lot, and I'm not always a big talker, but this is my last slide. Talking about fixed costs, right? Another part of what makes it hard when you deal with declining enrollment, and again, this is not just about Cleveland, it's hard to adjust immediately on the fly. And these costs are subject to inflation. You have instruction costs, teachers, that's maybe the most adjustable if you lay people off. But if enrollment drops are spread across a district, and not just Cleveland again, any one school may still need a certain number of staff unless you take other steps, right? So that's one example. Service costs, administrators, food service, that can be less adjustable because, you have people feeding lunches. You still need to feed maybe fewer students, but in a bunch of different places, right? Capital costs, you have a lot of buildings, construction, operation. Until you start to close buildings, you have to still deal with those costs. And those are harder to adjust in the short term, even for smaller enrollment changes. So that's it, pretty much. I hope I've left you with some sense of at least my perspective and our perspective on this complicated landscape, and just really the deepness of the history. It's not something that just happened yesterday. This has been going on, the neglect, the abandonment of the inner city, this quote inner city of Cleveland, has been going on for decades and decades. It's especially what, we're looking at how do we make sure we have constitutional funding in Ohio. So that's here's some contact information for me, and we have an email list. We have weekly meetings. We have a coalition call every week. We have like some 40, 50, 60 people join every week to talk about legislation we're tracking and what have you. So I'd love for you to check us out.
Thank you, Mr. Van Leer. I appreciate you sharing. This is really obviously helpful for the board, but I think a part of my intent in bringing you here today was to help the community understand as well. And as you said, many of these issues are quite complicated, and you did a really good job laying out kind of an overview. I appreciate that. So we'll start with board discussion. Ms. Jones?
Thank you for the presentation. My question is, with all the organizations that are a part of your group, has there been any discussion or thought about trying to put something on the ballot or before the legislature to try to make some changes?
To which? The funding or vouchers?
The funding and, to get more funding for local schools, or at least to have it equitable as much as possible.
Yeah, there's definitely conversations and thinking about how do we make that work. One thing we're doing as we look to the budget next year is how do we, for example, we just worked with a Republican senator on a bill that would require accountability and transparency and reporting from non-public schools that take vouchers, right? And it's not going to go anywhere in this legislature, even though it has Republican support, because in rural areas, they don't have any private schools. They can't use the voucher, and they see the people who are paying attention see that there's no reason to be, it's just sucking money from rural areas to more suburban areas where people are using it more often. So that is for us a messaging, here's the thing that's happening with vouchers, and as we go into the budget cycle next year, from January to June, the new legislature will look at a 2-year state budget, and we're talking about how do we push to get that kind of thing, some of that language into the budget. How do we use that to show that funding is really important? There are groups working very closely on funding issues. So I think next, for the short term, it's more about the budget and to see what we can do to fix the Fair School Funding Plan and get it restored. And then there are definitely some conversations around statewide referenda. That The challenge there, well, it's a lot of work, and given what, for example, happened with the redistricting referendum, if you remember that recently, where the Republican legislators, I'm nonpartisan, but they are all Republicans, they changed the language of the bill to confuse folks. So if that control is there and there's not good faith to put an issue before voters, it makes it even more challenging to get something like that on the ballot and get it passed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that excellent presentation. It was very informative. If you were czar of public education in the state of Ohio with absolute authority, what would be your steps to correct this horrific situation?
Well, I would make sure at the very least that we could fully implement the Fair School Funding Plan, or something like it that's really based on what schools need, what public schools need across the state, and that they're really adequately and fully funded. That would be the number one thing. I would take a look at the vouchers. At some level, I think vouchers should go away. And if we fully fund and adequately fund public schools, then vouchers won't be needed, because they're just really, they were billed, especially starting in Cleveland, as for low-income people who are stuck with schools that weren't doing very well, right? But if you really did a good job with the schools and funded them well and gave them the support they needed, whether that's, adequate teaching staff, social workers, mental health, all these things, thinking about the whole child, then maybe you wouldn't need vouchers as much. There wouldn't be as much reason to do that. So I think that's, if I could wave a wand, I would probably dramatically reduce the voucher programs so that at most they were for students, who really needed them, who were in low-income families especially, and if there's real need there. I mean, I'm very conflicted about it. My kids have been in Cleveland. I live in Cleveland. They've been in charter school, district school, and a private school. So I have a very broad sense of it. But I think the more you can do to make strong schools, then you don't need the other options as much. And that's complicated. It's not an overnight task, right? So I think those are the things I would look at. I would make sure we gave property tax relief to people who really need it, and made the property tax system work better if we're going to require schools to fund a lot locally. And finally, I would, looking at some of the tax cuts, I would go back to a progressive income tax that's not regressive like the current one with a flat tax. They're talking about getting rid of it, so I would get rid of a lot of corporate loopholes and tax breaks that at least make sure we look at them and make sure they're really doing what we want them to do, because there's not a lot of review of them. So I would look at how do we boost our tax revenue in a way that makes sense, so that it's not, the burden isn't falling on lower income Ohioans.
That's terrific. Thank you very much. And, it's so obvious that cities with excellent education are the ones who prosper the most. And we have a ways to go, but we're making progress.
Yeah. And we know that test scores are more reflective of socioeconomic status and wealth than they are of what's happening in the classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Leer. I do want to underscore that point, that the socioeconomic piece and the funding that the students receive and the funding, the wealth that their families have is often highly correlated. Thank you. Mr. Billups.
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Van Leer. Since my colleague, Mr. Briggs, hired you to be the czar, I just got a follow-up question. Hopefully, I'm not overstepping, but I'm just looking at slide 9, and at times I can take a little second to understand fully. But the state provides $5,000 roughly in funding for students in our district, but provides upwards of $8,400 to students that's going to charter schools that potentially would be our students. Is there a reason that someone could explain to make sense to why the state would provide more dollars for a private school over a public school funding, And then the next question would be, should we expect that gap in the next 5 years, 10 years to widen or lessen?
Okay, so good question. So to be clear, the state share that I mentioned is like without the additional cost, right? So there is more funding from the state for students in Cleveland than that 5,000, but it's the base cost. So in terms of why, I mean, I think the goal here, as stated goal by many legislators and politicians, has been to, because they support private schools and they want to support private schools. It's always been that, like, they think private schools are better. That's where they're coming from. They really believe that private schools can do it better. And I think there's also an argument to be made that they want to dismantle public schools. I mean, there's a lot of reasons I see that it's happening around the country, not just in Ohio. Whether it's the Trump administration pretty much gutting the Department of Education and trying to move it to different places, move its functions to different parts of the government, away from education, which is really its core, but both higher ed and public K-12. And, you know, we have a gubernatorial candidate who has pretty much said he wants vouchers for everyone. The backpack bill, that language has been around for several years. And the idea is that every kid could get X amount of money and just go to whatever school they want. This is all about dismantling the schools. I think there's, you know, you can argue that teachers' unions have been a power in this state and around the country. And so it's partly an attack on the teachers' unions. And it's also, I think, you know, that idea of a common good, a public good that public schools represent, where people are coming together from different socioeconomic, you know, different neighborhoods, different kinds of people coming together, in theory, ideally, that is threatening maybe to people who don't really want people to be informed and engaged. And, you know, that would be my take on it. So what will happen in the next 5, 10 years? It depends on where we go. I mean, I think one thing what we advocate for is for people to look at the candidates they're going to vote for, whether it's for state rep or governor or any of the statewide offices, who's pro-public education. And that for us is a litmus test. If they're actively supporting public education, and this is Democrats and Republicans alike, it's nonpartisan, like the lack of support and support. As I mentioned, we have a couple of Republicans who are supporting this legislation, you know, that I mentioned in the voucher accountability, right? So I think there's just, it depends on how these elections go and the next round, and, you know, how people can come together depending on what happens with that. So we'll see in a year, we'll know better where we're going to be, or in November at least, and then we have to keep building. So I think one of the things we try to do is let people know what we can and what we can do together, and how people have to come together to not only vote, but to work, you know, locally and build that bench to really create change at the state level.
Thank you, Mr. Van Leer. I got one more question. Going back to one of the earlier slides with some of the advocacy groups. My question is, are there examples or opportunities for younger people, you know, young adults fresh out of college or even still in college, to get involved with some of this advocacy on a grassroots level to try to help bring about change in all the ways that our school districts are being impacted?
Definitely, we do have a youth organizer, and it's challenging, you know, because you have young people who are under 18, and, you know, it can be challenging, but it's just getting started, but we do definitely try to include young people in the conversation. One of the things we're doing right now, for example, we did a survey, a statewide survey, and a lot of focus groups and town halls where we collected data asking people about why schools are important to them and what matters to them and what public schools mean to them. And with that, we've got some researchers from Kent State. It sounds kind of wonky, I know, but bear with me. But you know, we're going to put out a report about, like, and that's going to create our vision for the future of public schools in Ohio. And one of the things we're doing with that, and we're trying to connect with a lot of young people. We have a documentary crew going around to, like, tell that story about how communities come together, the things they care about. And so there's definitely opportunity for young people. I actually emailed that survey to one of the teachers in Cleveland who I know, And he shared it with his students, and I'm hoping, I know they were very interested in it, so we're going to keep trying. We had a youth survey too as part of it, but, and we definitely do want, if you have any ideas, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to make some connections that we could build on.
Thank you. Dr. Morgan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I actually just had a quick follow-up almost to Ms. Jones's question. Really, one of the things we've been seeing, it was affirming to see, some of the data we were using on our enrollment decline. Also, our budget realities are the things we've been talking about and sharing with the community over the past year of some of the things we've had to do in light of our budget realities. But also talking to colleagues across the country, this is something that everyone is really wrestling with. The challenges of declining enrollment, the budget realities, and in many cases, a district that is either overbuilt given the current realities. And so, I wonder in your research or in the organization that you're with, that you guys are either seeing any things nationally that we can look to in Ohio as models, and also, I guess, closely connected to that. Is there any agenda, really advocacy agenda, really at the federal level? Just because I'm seeing these trends across the country. We're not the only state. We're not the only urban city dealing with this.
Yeah, well, in terms of the last question, there's certainly efforts to organize around making sure because the federal budget is in process right now, and there's cuts there. So advocating with legislators, like Congress members and senators around that, so that don't make cuts at the federal level, because it's not as big of a piece of funding as I'm sure you know, but it's not insignificant, and that's a big piece of it. And there's, we're in touch with people, for example, around the voucher fight. And there's people in Arizona and Texas and Wisconsin. Actually, I'm going to be on a panel at a conference in September around with those people from those states, looking at what they're doing and how they're fighting. So I think, the federal piece is really important. There's a new federal tax credit, which could be very damaging. It's essentially, it's not technically a voucher, but it's, anybody who contributes to a school granting organization, SGO, they can get a break on federal funds. There's already one of those in Ohio for Ohio schools, and they're trying to get people to donate to them. So there's a lot of different moving parts, but certainly, yeah. I mean, the piece I'm focused on most is the federal budget and that the national voucher piece that was in the last budget, and then the voucher piece.
Thank you, Mr. Van Leer. I just had a few points or questions. So earlier when you talked about Ohio's share of public school funding, what the state used to pay, what now local taxpayers pick up, what the state drops, you're referring to levies there, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I know that there was some discussion or questions about the vouchers. I wanted to weigh in with my opinion as well, around the expansion of vouchers. I think originally, ostensibly, the idea was, for low-income families for whom private school was the best option or a better option, there was, this idea that the vouchers would give them that access, understanding that they were in a lower socioeconomic situation. But it has, with the expansion to everybody, I do agree with you that at this point it's just sucking money out of the public coffers, right, and taking it to private schools and families that could otherwise afford to go to those schools as well if they wanted to. I'll leave it at that. Appreciate the conversation and the presentation today. I don't see any other discussion, but I've shared with the board your property tax toolkit from Honesty as well. I think that's really useful. I'd really encourage other folks to take a look at it on the Honesty for Ohio website.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. The chair will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the board business meeting of May 19th, 2026. So moved. Thank you, Mr. Stockdale. Please call the roll.
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBron?
Yes.
Mrs. Peak?
Yes.
Dr. Sridhar? Yes. Mrs. Welchow? Yes. The motion passes with 8 votes.
Thank you. The motion passes. The minutes are approved. This evening's board meeting agenda includes 35 resolutions in the areas of Board of Education, Finance, Operations, IT, Academics, and Excellence in Culture, which the board will vote on as a part of its consent agenda at our June 23rd board business meeting. I do want to, although it is a consent agenda, we are not discussing this item. I do want to recognize that among the consent agenda items is 5.01 regarding the public library tax budget, transmitting that to the Cuyahoga County Budget Commission. I want to recognize Director Felton Thomas, Ms. Carrie Krenicki, and our CPL trustee, Melanie Shakarian, for being here with us today. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? All right. The next regular board meeting will be a board business meeting on Tuesday, June 23rd at 6:30 p.m. at Garrett Morgan High School. The chair will now entertain a motion that the board enter into executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment and employment of public employees and officials, preparing for negotiations with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment, conferring with attorneys concerning disputes involving the Board of Education that are the subject of pending or imminent court action, and considering confidential information related to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance where the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.62, and that a unanimous quorum of the board determines that this executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project.
So move. So move.
Thank you. Mr. Stockdale, please call the roll on this motion.
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBron?
Yes.
Mrs. Peak?
Yes.
Dr. Sridhar?
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow?
Yes.
Unanimously passed with 8 votes.
Thank you. With that unanimous vote, the board will now move into executive session. Following executive session, the board will return to this room to briefly conduct some further business.
This is our annual Rock Your World with STEAM Festival. This is our first year partnering with the City of Cleveland, and we are thrilled to be at Public Hall. And right now what you are experiencing are multiple musical acts, from orchestra to band to marching band to, we just had it finished with our African drumming with Brother Olu. And we have art displays in the basement. We have multiple community partners and vendors here all day.
Our mega body behind us, but we were talking about mental health awareness and again bringing forth the importance of understanding your body from head to toe. So we have the yoga, we have medical masseuse down doing massages. For individuals, it doesn't always mean a person needs medicine, but they might need different methods and outlets of attaining wellness. So we're bringing it all today.
So as a culmination of learning throughout the year, this is the perfect opportunity for our teachers and our scholars to showcase what they've been doing. When you think about music, for example, it takes almost a year to really get to the level that you need to be able to perform. Nearly every school has some form of participation in this, whether it's through the All-City program or by tabling on their own to display what they're doing. This is truly an all-school, all-city event, and it's a celebration of every grade level, K through 12. It's the best day of the year. This is when we get to celebrate our kids and to celebrate our families, and there's nowhere else I'd rather be.
We are here for you. You were nominated by the academics team to receive an award from the Harvard Business School Alumni Association of Northeast Ohio, Excellence in School Leadership and Management. They give 2 awards. They give 2 awards to 2 extraordinary leaders in Northeast Ohio. You are one of them. And we thank you for all the work you do, not only here at Garrett Morgan for the scholars here, but also by representing the school leaders across our district. You do it fearlessly. You represent our educators and teachers. You advocate for them. And we just are grateful for your leadership. So excited for you. Congratulations. Scholars and educators, give your principal a round of applause.
So when you are late to school, like, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like you're missing part of your day, or you're trying to play catch up? Like, how does that make you feel when you come to school late?
It just makes it a little bit harder to understand where we at and in school. I live in a Huff neighborhood, which is on the east side of Cleveland, and go to school on the west side. So I take 2 buses to get to school, and it usually takes about an hour. And maybe if it's like something going on in the road, traffic jams or something, it'll take off some time, so it'll take even longer to get to school. I have to get to school on time so I can be able to pass, get the credits that I need to be able to graduate. I got world history first period, so it's kind of hard to catch up in that class because we doing pasting, so we moving, and it's no point in coming back for just one student. It's important to get to school on time because you will be able to meet new people, learn things like that you never knew. Get to school.
One of our students, they did something special for someone in the community. And so we get all these people here to celebrate and to recognize what Allison did for someone in her community.
That morning, while boarding the school bus, you noticed a small child wandering alone on the street, wearing only a t-shirt. Recognizing the danger the child was in, you immediately alerted the bus driver and took action to help. I want to give you a First District Commander's coin. It's got a 1 on the front for the First District and the seal of the Cleveland Division of Police on the back.
And I saw the girl walk out, and the bus driver was about to hit her.
And so what did you say to the bus driver?
I was like, stop. And then he told me, who is that? Is that your niece? I was like, no, that's not my niece. And then I went off the bus to go grab her.
It shows a great deal of awareness and maturity for her age. Most kids, like you say, they're on the bus, they're talking, they're on their phone, you know, and the fact that she noticed, she paid attention, you know, to what was going on at that particular time is just, you know, amazing.
I think it's very important because, you know, we're a community. We work together, we help each other, and that's how we get things done, and she's already doing that. Children can teach us a lot, and I think she did. Be aware, look around, help people when you see them in need.
I don't really care about the gifts because it was just the point to save somebody, anybody that need help.
You go to the website, you type in the access code, and you're in. Your kids' pictures are there, and you could easily, I have kids at 2 different schools, you can easily switch from school to school and keep up on top of it.
Everything's right there. Like, everybody always has their phone with them, so you can easily access it to your phone.
It's a relief for me knowing that my child has the best chance that they can, knowing every day they wake up, they can go to school and, you know, take advantage of the day.
The Board of Education's job is to make sure that the right adult behaviors are in place so that students can learn and grow in school every day.
I hope to motivate the scholars in some form of and capacity, really to make sure that they're inspired by the work that we do for them. You know, this is a job of service, fully volunteer role, but the people that are serving on the board, myself included, are doing it out of passion and pure hope of the scholars' futures. And so I hope that they start to believe in themselves the same way that we believe in them.
Having been an educator all my life, I thought I would have a significant role to play in shaping what our young people and young scholars and our future leaders are going to be doing with their education. I believe in paying it forward, and I still believe I am paying it forward for myself.
I am an inveterate volunteer, and so I saw this as an opportunity to give back to the Cleveland community and try to make a difference.
I enjoy being engaged with people in my neighborhood, hearing from them, learning what they think about different things, hearing suggestions, hearing thoughts, even the complaints. I enjoy engaging with the students, and I think that's my role with being a board member, is engaging with the community in every way possible.
I'm out there every day talking to people, sitting on every community work group that you can think of. What I want to accomplish is that we level up the opportunities for our children to receive the best education possible. And I want you to be able to discover all the goodness in you, because we all have something that is unique about us. So we want to give you the opportunity to explore that and make good decisions once you leave the school system.
I believe that this district can be a premier district, and I'd love to be remembered for pushing a standard of excellence.
I wanted to give back to the school system that I participated in from kindergarten to graduating senior. I'm hoping to make a difference, have a positive impact, and see the test scores and graduation rates increase. I also hope to inspire other CMSD alum to give back to CMSD with their time and support.
I'm grateful to interact with so many wonderful people, brilliant individuals who have the capabilities and skill sets to really make our city even greater. And I'm just honored to be a part of the plan of the CMSD and the service of this community.
As a kid myself, I moved around a lot and I went to a lot of different schools. And what I saw firsthand is that all children are born equal with the same rights to education, but not all schools are created equal. And some schools have more resources than others. Some schools have more of the right practices than others. And I wanted to be a part of making sure that our school system was the right system for our children so they could have the education that they deserve.
We all have different skill sets, different experiences, different backgrounds that we all bring to the table when it's time for us to have these discussions. We bring different perspectives and different life experiences. And so being able to sit at the table with other leaders in our community and people who actually are invested in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District system, it means that we're providing different perspectives. We're looking at it from different lenses and different angles, which is also representative of our community, right?
You know, our students achieving everything that they possibly can, achieving and striving towards our goals and guardrails that our board laid out. I think that, you know, producing students that can enter the world in whatever way they choose to and be successful is really the only thing to accomplish from my perspective.
Most importantly is increasing student outcomes. So we have our challenges, but my board colleagues and I and Dr. Morgan and his incredible staff are heavily focused on that, and we're going to do everything in our power to make it happen.
My favorite quote is Man in the Arena, actually. It's by former President Teddy Roosevelt, and it's really about not paying attention to the critics. It's not the critic who counts, it's not the person on the sidelines, it's the person who's getting dusty in the arena every single day and getting back up again and again and again, even after failure. And even if you fail at something, at least you failed by daring greatly. But the only way to be great is to try.
Today it is the last scrimmage to find out who goes to state. It has been a really great journey. It's different learning about STEM and like robotics and tech.
My favorite part about building the robot is all the teamwork it takes.
The teamwork, I feel like it brings our team together, and I really like that part.
The robot has to launch artifacts, which is similar to a ball. So they're launching it into a pyramid type situation and get those points. And then you have to line your robot in a certain order to get points. It's a lot of challenges in depth in getting points.
Our robot, it took us a lot of time to really build it. It took a lot of patience. We came across many problems and challenges, like our chain kept breaking, so we had to find a lot of solutions to that problem. And it was a lot of gracious professionalism used.
This is their thing, and they really take it seriously, and they come out and they try, and you just, like this morning, one of my girls did something in one of the presentations, and I started to tear up because I was just so proud of them because I've never seen this child do this, and she just blossomed right in front of me.
Hi, I'm Darielle Snipes with CMSD Communications. Today, I am so excited. I am hanging out with two of the Senate League girls flag football teams, John Hay and Rhodes. This sport is gaining popularity. Right now, CMSD has 7 teams. I'm so excited to learn more about flag football. Let's go. Joining me now is head coach of the John Hay ladies flag football team, Coach Vanetta Kreider. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I know this is an exciting sport. It's a growing sport. It just got sanctioned by the Ohio High School Athletic Association. That's exciting news. So now your girls can go for state championships. Yeah. But you know, some of us were brand new to flag football. Tell me, what is the difference between flag football and just basic football?
The difference for flag football and basic football for our girls is that we actually get to compete this year. Outside of only using flags and not be able to contact each other, and we have to wear mouthpieces.
Okay, but just talk about the growing popularity of this girls sport and how exciting it is, especially here in CMSD and the Senate League.
Yes, right now it means that girls flag football is now recognized by OSHA. So now we get more opportunities to get school funding. So luckily we're a Division I school, so we had about 40 girls that come and try out. So this year we were expecting even more.
I mean, what do you think about that more girls want to play football?
I'm excited. I'm excited to teach them and for them to want to be competitive and lead and get outside their comfort zone.
The fact that it's, you know, when people think about football, they think about it as a male-dominated sport. The fact that flag football, especially girls flag football, is taking off, it gives young ladies an opportunity to play what once was known as a male-dominated sport. Can you just talk about that opportunity for them?
Yes, now it gives the girls a platform to compete and lead, and we're breaking stereotypes and proving that football isn't just for boys. Anybody can play as long as you got the passion and the skill for it.
And joining me now are 2 players from the girls flag football team at Rhodes. Welcome. Tell me your names and what grade you're in.
I'm Aaliyah. I go to Rhodes Environmental Studies and I'm in 10th grade.
My name is Naya. I go to RCCA and I'm in 10th grade.
Wonderful. So just tell me, because I don't know, I'm learning, what is the difference between flag football and football?
Well, flag football and regular football, we already know it's not as much contact, but there's a lot you can do. Like the quarterback can't run.
The ball is smaller, less people on the field, so it gives. And flag it's quick. It's not like football. Football you have more time. Flag is quick, and you have like less time.
Okay, and then you also have the flags. Yeah. How hard or easy is it to get another opponent's flag?
It depends on how fast the person is moving.
Yeah, definitely.
And what moves they're pulling out. But usually, if you're catching up to the person, it's very easy. They're not hard to pull or nothing, so.
So tell me, why did you guys want to join the team?
Well, I wanted to join the team because ever since I was very young, I always played regular football with my brothers. And when I got older, I realized it was something I always wanted to do. In 2023, I played flag football with boys, but then I got scouted for a girls team, and we went all the way to nationals in Las Vegas and won a championship ring there. And then when I came here, there was no flag football team, so I asked if I could play tackle. But my mom wouldn't let me, and then I found out later on we had a flag football team, and I was like, oh, this is my sport, so I'm definitely going to play.
I also feel like a sport that was really made for boys that girls never really got the opportunity to play. When I saw it at Rhodes, I feel like a sport that was always classified as a boys sport girls being able to play, I feel like that was really cool. So I really wanted to take that opportunity to play. And also, Coach O'Neill, she really inspired me to play. She was the assistant basketball coach, and it really gave me something to do. And now it's something I really would do the rest of my years in high school and see where it takes me.
Right, so this is the second season for the team. Just talk about how fun it is and just the team camaraderie that you ladies have.
It was very fun. Like, in the first year, it was some rough patches, but we always got through it. Our coach, she's a very great coach because she is like more informational about flag football than basketball. So when she is out here, she put her heart on the field just like we do.
Yeah, Coach O'Neill, she really great. She keeps us all lifted up. Like, something could go wrong, and she was always bringing the joy. It was like, our first year was really fun. We went real far, and just seeing where it took us, it made me excited for the next season to come. Like, what we gonna bring to the table. And flag, like, I didn't expect it to be, like, I thought it was just gonna be something to do. But when we actually started playing, I'm like, it's fun. Like, it's really fun.
Now, another difference is that flag football is played in the spring and not in the fall like regular football. Well, can you just talk about the fact that now it is a sanctioned sport, and so now you guys can go for a state championship? Just talk about you guys could be the state champs.
That's very exciting to me because, like I said, I always love football in general. So for me to have this opportunity to probably ever get scholarships to play in college is just like something I want to achieve.
I think that's really good. Like, it opens up more opportunities for the girls and gives girls something to do, because we always, as a girl, we always like doubt it, or we don't always get as much opportunity. So it just opens the door for girls sports.
Now, it's still, even though you guys don't have pads and a helmet, it still can be tough. I mean, it's still, I mean, it's still a contact sport. Would you not say?
Like, you're definitely gonna fall. You're definitely gonna
get bumps.
But it's fun.
Yes, it's very exciting.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies.
What you see before you is a culmination of 2.5 years of work. But moreover, it was 86 years of blood, sweat, and tears put forth by men and women who comprise the Tuskegee experiment. Let history show that in the course of human endeavor, that never have so many owed so much to so few.
My first reaction was it looked a lot better than I did it in class. It took a lot, and it's just, I'm proud to see that it's up there, and I'm glad everyone else can see it too. I think it's good that the Tuskegee Airmen get their word out and their faces out because they helped this world, and I'm glad that I was able to help them represent it. I seen everyone do their painting in class. I seen like their entire process through it, and now looking at it inside the airport, it's like, wow, they did that. That's amazing.
My name is Lori Lane, and this is my father, Earl Roscoe Lane. He was with the 332nd of the Tuskegee Airmen. I think they did a fantastic job in doing it. I know when I was speaking to a group of them, they said they did a lot of research on it, but they were so open to listening and to learning more, so that we have more young people that are able to display their talent, learn, and it's one, as a teacher, I know it's one of the greatest ways for students to learn, and for this will stay with them for the rest of their lives.
When I say food is, you say medicine. Food is? Food is? Woo! Give it up, yay!
So what we have going on here today is a Meet the Farmer event. So we have this year partnered with 4 Cleveland growers that grow the vegetables that are on the salad bars that are in some of our schools. And the students can meet the farmer. Today we have Farmer Sarah and Farmer Jamel, and they get to meet the farmer that grows their food. They can ask them questions. We have trading cards, and the students get to try the produce items that the farmers grow, and it just encourages them to try something new, to eat fresh vegetables, and they can meet the farmer, and then they get to vote on if they like the produce item or not, and they get fun stickers, and we have if they write on the board of what they liked about the product.
This is one of the youngest demographics that we can have an influence on, and when you're talking about school lunches, this is food that they're going to be eating daily for a majority of the year, right? And so to be able to introduce local foods on a daily basis to students within the Cleveland area is just evolutionary.
We're talking about the benefits of fresh foods. and also the difference between local fresh foods and those you might get, say, at a grocery store that might have been shipped from all over the country or world to get to your plate, often picked months and months earlier and don't have the same level of nutrition or flavor. So giving them that experience of eating something that was grown locally and why that's so important and why it's so important to grow your own food.
It was kind of sour. It was sour. And that was my first time ever trying that, but it had a pretty color.
So today we started on our robots. Well, we started on robots like 2 days ago, but today we added like our finishing touches, and we made them waterproof with pool noodles. We attached motors to them with wax in it, so it's waterproofed. And those motors spin at a very high speed, so it can propel itself through the water and able to do its tasks. It's so cool because usually robots are like on the surface, right? This time it's underwater, which makes it harder to see, but more funner because like you don't know what's gonna happen.
The machine itself, you can program it first from your computer. Once you access, this is via Bluetooth. Basically you can control it from there and automate it wherever program you want to, set it at a specific time. Experiencing all of this, I've actually had a lot of fun being able to come up here and just learn about a machine. And I've personally been part of a robotics team, so being able to experience a machine automating other stuff like agriculture is a really good experience. I had a lot of fun.
So I just got to Cleveland. I just wanted to come out and see y'all. We working out every day. We got a purpose. We got something we trying to accomplish and achieve. But I'm trying to bring Cleveland, of course, a Super Bowl. What inspires me to keep going, I would say, knowing I got a lot of people watching me, knowing that I'm a positive influence to the youth. That's why I say what keeps me going. So like even coming here, seeing y'all.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, no beeping, hold that up.
When the kids walk through the door, there's a personal relationship here. So immediately they have a connection with an adult as soon as they've entered the building.
Typical day at James Ford Roads is being active with the kids, trying to be proactive with the kids before it becomes reactive.
Sometimes we have to stop and counsel or assist a student that might be going through something when they came in this morning.
I greet the students, make sure the hall is clear, interact, ask them how their day was going, walk through, interact with the parents, the community, the mailman, the neighbors across the street. They familiar with me because I'm outside, I'm greeting with them.
I try to walk around, try to help the kids. I'm not trying to police them as a security officer. Can't do that. You try to help them in every way possible, and that's what I do. I'm a resource for them.
Going through the detectives, in the long run, I hear them say, boy, if it wasn't for y'all doing that, this, that, and that. So they really do like that detective, but just knowing that you in the halls.
And the students see that, and they see how I, if they beep or they see how I go through their bags, I don't play, so they feel safe. They be like, oh, there go Miss Campbell, Miss Campbell. When they fear or something, they come straight, Miss Campbell, so-and-so, and I'll be like, okay. So that makes me feel that, they see that I'm serious about my job,
I have noticed if we're referencing the phone collection, a lot of the students are interacting more with one another instead of just being stuck on their phones. They've started to build relationships with one another and do different things that last year and the year before that we weren't actually noticing anymore.
Especially with how we do the yonder cases, bringing in, securing book bags, making sure that no items or weapons are brought into school. I think it makes students and scholars feel much more comfortable, much more safe.
When the kids come through, they understand there are necessary things that have to happen. But when the officers treat them in that way, like human beings, and make them feel special, they're not thinking so much about those things. They're thinking about the relationship they're building. It's the most important thing for everyone in a building, is that relationship you have with kids. And if it's positive, usually you're going to get positive results. Not all the time, but more often than not.
I would do it all over again for anybody.
Hi, I'm Trisha Page, and I'm a first grade teacher at Andrew J. Rickoff. I had a couple students that were having lunch in the classroom with me that day. I was sitting at my table, like here in the back of the room, and her back was toward me this way.
So when I was eating my taco, I tried to dip my other one in the meat and cheese, but when it went to my throat, I choked on it. And
She was choking, and she was making the choking. Her hands were on her throat, and there was no sound whatsoever. I got up, ran to her, told the other teacher to go run and get the nurse. She was sitting in her seat, so
when she told me to get up, my tears, they did this.
I went underneath of her armpits here. I picked her up, I stood her up, and I started doing the Heimlich on her. And she was silent for a minute, and it was really scary. I don't know who was more scared, if she was more scared or if I was more scared. But eventually she started crying and making sound.
She deserves a reward. Thank you for saving my life.
You're welcome. And I would do it all over again.
The board is now back in public session. The board will not be conducting any further business this evening. The chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned.